The chill of steel cuffs dug into Jack Harlan's wrists like a bad omen on a stormy night. His eyes snapped open to the flicker of an oil lamp casting eerie shadows across his familiar ranch house. But something felt off-twisted. The bitter aftertaste of some drug lingered on his tongue. And there, at his worn oak table, sat two women devouring his leftover stew as if they owned the place. The younger one had sun-kissed skin and auburn hair, cascading like a waterfall, her every movement graceful yet charged. Her sister, older and sharper, eyed him with a glare that could stop a charging bull dead in its tracks. "You're up," the elder said, her voice laced with steel. He didn't know her name yet, but by sunrise, it would carve itself into his soul. The cuffs rattled as he strained against them solid restraints, the kind he'd bought to guard his secret from thieves just like him. "We know about the silver, Jack Harlan," she continued, her tone heavy with accusation and a hint of raw fury. What unfolded next would shatter every rule the rugged Colorado frontier of 1892 had drilled into him about loyalty, lust, and the razor-thin edge between redemption and ruin. 3 years of isolation had worn Jack down, ever since his wife, Emily, slipped away in his arms during a brutal fever outbreak. 3 years of whispering to his cattle and drowning sorrows in cheap bourbon. But in the wilds of Colorado, letting your guard down invited death. "Your father was my old partner," Jack tested, sitting up as far as the cuffs allowed. "Luis Reyes. Solid guy." The elder's voice snapped like a rifle shot. "Don't you dare say his name like you were friends." She rose, her frame tall and lean, curves hinting at Mexican heritage and endless trails ridden hard. The revolver on her belt gleamed from constant use. "Sophia," she called to her sister, but her eyes stayed locked on Jack. Isabella, the younger, shifted behind Sophia, her faded dress hugging her form despite the dust and wear from rough campsites. She was maybe 20, with eyes that held storms she'd weathered too young. "He talked about you," Isabella murmured. "Said you pulled him out of a tight spot once, back in the New Mexico Badlands." "Twice," Jack corrected with a wry grin. "But who's keeping score?" Sophia's slap landed like thunder, her palm stinging his cheek, but it hovered there a second too long, trembling. "He tasted copper as blood." "You sold him out," she hissed. "Took our dad's silver and left him to rot." Jack licked his lip. "Your dad was dipping into the Silverton Mining Company's hull, $40,000, in pure or headed for the U.S. Treasury. I didn't betray him. I tried to pull him back from the brink." "Liar. Check the drawer in my desk, second from the top." Isabella glided to the desk, her steps smooth as a mountain stream. She pulled out an envelope, unsealed it, and read in a voice quivering with emotion. "Sheriff Harlan Luis Reyes isn't the villain here. He's a pawn for the Blackwood Syndicate, hauling their stolen silver. Arrest him, and you're playing into their hands. He's decent, just tangled in bad deals. Let him turn state's evidence against the real crooks." The letter fluttered down. "You never mailed it," Sophia accused, but her fire dimmed. "No," Jack admitted, holding her stare. "Because 2 days later, your dad showed up with a scheme. One last run," he said. Enough to whisk his daughters away to safety beyond the law's reach. Silence blanketed the room, broken only by the wind howling through the pines and the crackle of the hearth. Sophia slumped into her chair, looking worn beyond her 26 years. With his last breath, he said, "You turned him in. Men spout nonsense when death's knocking." Isabella knelt by Jack, close enough for him to catch the scent of pine needles in her hair, the grit of the trail on her skin. "Where's the silver, Jack?" Her words were velvet over venom, the kind that coax confessions from the damned. "Hidden," he replied. "Safe from everyone, even me some nights." Sophia leaned in, her blouse parting slightly at the neck, revealing a tiny gold locket glinting in the firelight. "Dad mentioned a map to something bigger lost Union payroll from the war, buried in these hills." Jack nearly chuckled. Your old man had a flair for tall tales, didn't he? But the way she tilted her head, those dark eyes piercing, stirred something deep in Hima's spark of recognition. The gaze of a woman who'd inherited her father's cunning and grit. There's no payroll, Jack said, but there's something your dad gave his life shielding. The wind surged outside, carrying a wolf's distant cry. Isabella's hand brushed his arm, electric and perilous, nothing to do with her holstered pistol. What? She breathed. Before he could spill, Sophia's head whipped to the window, her hand snapping to her revolver. Riders, she whispered, closing in quick. Hoofbeats thundered over the frozen earth, spurs jingling, voices rough with greed. Marshals. Isabella's grip tightened on Jack. Worse, Sophia spat, dousing the lamp. Hired guns. In the pitch black, the front door splintered under a boot. The first bullet shredded the frame inches from Sophia's ear. She dove left, yanking Isabella behind the sturdy pine table Jack had hewn himself a decade ago solid enough to eat lead. Harlan, a voice boomed from the night, dripping with false authority. We know you're harboring the Reyes sisters. Hand 'em over, and we walk away clean. Jack rattled his cuffs against the bedpost. Keys in my shirt pocket, he hissed to Isabella. Left side. She paused, her eyes scanning his face in the flashes of gunfire, hunting for deceit the flaw that doomed her father. Trust me, Jack urged, and damn if he didn't mean it bone deep. Her fingers delved in, warm against his chest, intimate in the chaos. She found it, her touch lingering like a promise. Sophia, she whispered, I'm cutting him loose. No, Isabella Thiel's slaughter us. United or dead. Isabella shot back. The cuffs clattered free. Jack massaged his wrists, then yanked his Remington from under the mattress, 6 rounds chambered. How many? He asked Sophia. 5, give or take. Cool as ice, that won her dad's blood true. They've got the place ringed. But Jack grinned, or so they think. He pried at a loose floorboard, revealing the escape tunnel he'd dug in those endless nights after Emily's death, when grief clawed him raw. Lead to the old shed, 30 yards out. If we hit the horses. Bullets hammered the walls as they crawled through the dank earth, Isabella's body brushing his in the tight space, her warmth a distraction amid the fear. Sophia trailed, steady as a shadow. They burst out behind the shed as sleet began pelting down, fat drops that could hide tracks or betray them. There, Sophia pointed to a shadow by the house. Victor Slade. He's been on our tail for months. Jack knew the name. Victor Slade, assassin for hire, the sort who'd get a man for a nickel. He killed Dad, Isabella said, her voice arctic. I saw it. Jack studied her in the gloom, the gentle slope of her jaw, the fire in her stance. She was a force, wild and untouchable. Then this ain't business, Sophia growled, chambering around. It's blood. The storm built, sleet whipping like vengeful spirits. Jack could just make out the gunslingers advancing. They'll sniff us out soon. The blast cut him off dynamite through his window, engulfing his home in a blaze of timber and memories. Heat licked at them through the ice. Isabella gasped, her hand finding his fingers weaving tight small, fierce, shaking with wrath or terror or both. Sorry, she whispered. Your life. Just boards and nails, Jack muttered, but his throat tightened. Emily's quilt, her favorite chair all ash now. Sophia's hand on his shoulder was firm, almost tender. We'll settle the score. In the inferno's glow, Jack saw her true fierce as a puma, radiant as dawn over the Rockies, eyes vowing heaven or hell. No, he said. We'll teach him the cost. Slade's shout pierced the gale, torched the shed. They ain't far. Jack's smile turned feral. That's your mistake, pal. He guided them into the tempest, toward the high ridge where a local could vanish like smoke. The upper pasture had been Jack's refuge since Emily's passing. Now it was a war ground. Sleet thickened, muffling the world in white haze ideal for ambush. They'll track us, Sophia warned, breath pluming. Bank on it, Jack replied, priming his rifle with practiced ease. Isabella, you recall that abandoned shaft up the slope? She nodded, eyes mirroring the storm's pallor. Even bundled against the cold, her poise made his pulse race, unrelated to altitude. When hell breaks loose, he said, you bolt. No heroics. No, she countered unwavering. We end this as one. Sophia smirked, young for a flash. Dad always said Isabella had the spine. Guess from whom? Jack met Sophia's eyes, the shared peril forging a bond, breath sinking, hearts pounding with rush and unspoken ties. They hunkered behind a toppled spruce, trunk bulletproof. Jack sent her, sisters flanking like guardians. The intimacy of it all their sense mingling, the weight of survival stirred depths he'd buried. The hired guns crested the trail, cocky as kings. Victor Slade leading, Duster billowing like doom. For more soulless eyes and trigger-happy hands. Harlan, Slade bellowed. Last offer. Give up the girls, live to regret it. Jack's answer. A slug that spun Slade's hat into the drifts. The firefight raged for 15 minutes by Jack's watch, 15 minutes of blazing muzzles, shrieking bullets, crimson staining pristine white. When the dust settled, 3 lay still, 1 crawling, trailing red. Slade stood, arm mangled by Sophia's dead-eye shot. Done, Slade, Jack called. Fade away. Slade's laugh grated like gravel. This is the start, fool. Warrants on these sisters stretch to Texas. Every badge, every bounty dog theory marked forever. Maybe, Jack stepped out, but not alone. Slade's face twisted comprehension or dread. You die for 2 border tramps? The slur hung toxic. Sophia inhaled sharply, but Isabella struck first, her pistol whipping out swiftly. The shot punched Slade's chest, felling him into the white where he fit. My name, she said softly, is Isabella Reyes. Etch it in. Slade gurgled blood, then stilled. The pasture hushed, but for the wind in the evergreens. Jack gazed at Isabella, not the scared girl who'd cuffed him, but the warrior who'd avenged kin. Stunning, lethal, flawless like a honed blade. Ain't finished, Sophia said, reloading coolly. Moral hunt. Lem, Jack replied, eyes on Isabella's returning, gaze laden with vows and horizons. A man's weary of solitude. They interred the fallen in shallow pits, spring rains to unearth not holy, but fitting for the faithless. Descending to the smoldering ruins, Isabella's hand slipped into Jack's instinctive, vital as air. The silver, Sophia prompted. Your plan? Jack pondered Emily, oaths honored and shattered, dreams deferred. Build good from it. A clinic in Denver. Open al no questions on history or hue. Dad'd approve. Isabella said one dusk on their new porch, built wide for 3. Her fresh green dress, town-bought, swayed with her breath, still unsteadying his hands. Sophia, ever pragmatic, oiled her revolver by lantern. He want his content. Are you? Isabella's reply, her fingers entwining his, easy as dawn. Sophia's, a nod of quiet endorsement for the man her sister chose. They shed old skins. Jack Harlan became Javier Reyes, greased by silver's sway with the governor. Nights, when coyotes wailed, Jack recalled Slade's taunts of endless pursuit. But Isabella's stir in bed, Sophia's kitchen laugh, reminded, renewal wasn't wiping slates, but crafting worth from wreckage. Colorado tamed, growing civilized, but essentials love, fealty, fresh, stayed feral as the wilds. What do you think of Jack's choice to stand with the sisters, even after the betrayal accusations? Was Isabella justified in pulling the trigger on Slade, or should justice have come from the law? Drop your take in the comments below, pick a side, and let me know your thoughts. I'd love to hear how this story hits you.